Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
We're back on the Northland Sports Page. Hour number 2, Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook. Guess who's back? It's us, but it's not about us right now. Guess who's back? There's a much bigger deal around the corner.
And we just love that song, and it's so appropriate for this. You know, when we're singing Guess Who's Back, it's this guy.
I was going to say, Paul Allen has been so kind to join us so many times, year after year, week after week, and he's even doing it now during the NFL Scouting Combine, one of your favorite times of the year.
It is one of my favorite times of the year, and I'm excited to ask PA about some of those weird things that are going on.
I was going to say, because we are so loaded with questions, let's get right to them. Paul Allen, good morning, sir. Thank you for, like I said during the break, reassessing your calendar and making your way here.
Good morning. What's going on there, boys? What kind of questions you got from the old combine?
Well, we got a lot of them because there's been a lot of JJ steam involving the Vikings this week, and pick a JJ. There was Kwesi coming out saying, you know, the Jefferson bid has no merit to it. He's going to be here. And then there's J.J. McCarthy bits every time you turn around, leading to him potentially being in purple. Which J.J. do you want to talk about first? Because it seems to be the headline somewhere.
Well, the trading of Justin Jefferson is, you know, I'm not a 0 or a 100% best ever, worst ever kind of person, but this is, from my perception at least, about as close to a 0 as you're going to get. So I just don't really. You know, I don't find, as you said, merit in the talker. But I guess, you know, from a speculating standpoint, if you love the Minnesota Vikings and you're trying to make the team better and you're like, hey, if you know, look what happened with Herschel Walker 30 years ago or whatever, and if you trade him, you can get this, that, and the other. Well, that would be accurate, but it just doesn't work that way when you have somebody like that, the face of the franchise. With J.J. McCarthy, I came into the Indianapolis trip, you know, hearing just not watching a lot of college football. I know who he is. I watched him in the championship game. I've watched him about 3-4 times. And there are things that I like, but the problem I have with college football and not following it super closely is I just didn't know a lot about the teammates around him and the defenses that he's playing and like what they bring forth. Well, after getting to the combine and talking about McCarthy with most people off the microphone, he's untapped talent, and that excites a lot of people in the NFL. In that, you know, God will gift you with a strong arm. Okay, so you can't teach that. But when it comes to some potential accuracy-related problems, they're you know, to a man, every coach in the NFL feels that you get him with me and give me a little time, and I can work on that accuracy situation. So he definitely has rave reviews.
Say, PA, one of the things that I've been reading about him is you hear both sides of this, and I want your take on that. You hear, well, he had a run-heavy pro offense, and Harbaugh did this and Harbaugh did that, so we don't know really how good he is. And yet the flip side, you hear about this quarterback who's in an air raid system and Bo Nix, right? He got 4.1 yards per attempt because all they do is dink and dunk down the field. Does right. Harbaugh's offense, being in a professional offense like that, does that help McCarthy or does it hurt it?
No, you nailed it. And it used to, you know, like with Florida State when Bobby Bowden was the coach. There are just certain things you hear about college football programs and auras that stand the test of time. So like when Bobby Bowden ran Florida State, I mean, it was as pro style, NFL style of an offense really that you would find in college football. And so therefore players that would come out of it with the terminology and the motions and the nuance that goes into, you know, not spreading receivers super wide outside the hash marks and every play being shotgun and stuff like that, that they would adapt better. And Michigan with Harbaugh is one of those offenses, power run, vertical pass. Like, you know, I mean, over the course of time, it's you just taking defensive players from the Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-12, you know, that wasn't working out as well. until like Trent McDuffie was drafted from Washington by the Chiefs, and he's a stone cold stud. So, because they play a different brand of football in the Pac-12 that's more offensively conducive. So, with McCarthy, it's I can just tell that the coaches and offensive minds have seen how he operates the play action and how he turns his back on the defense, and they like that. They like decisions he's had to make when it comes to claustrophobic situations. One of two ways to go. He seems to go the right way. But they just ran so much and set up with 2 and 3 tight ends so much that it's by faith, it's by football faith when you spread out 4 and 5 wide and you do it consistently and you put him out of the shotgun. How's that going to work? That's what's going to be a work in progress. With Bo Nix, I heard a lot of good things about Bo. Now, Bo, for the most part, had an average at best Senior Bowl. All right, it was windy, he misfired, and some people got down on him after the Senior Bowl. But the thing that resonated with me about Nix, when I left the combine, and I never really thought of this, I think he played there 6 years. So I think he's like 5-6 year guy. Those are a lot of games, and there are some who are concerned that he's already hit his ceiling, where the likes of Penix to a certain extent, but then McCarthy, Daniels, May, and Williams, they supposedly are not close to their ceilings. Likewise, this talented quarterback from South Carolina, Spencer Rattler, that I started to hear a lot about last Wednesday, good things too.
So all the talk has been about quarterback for good reason. What does your gut tell you? Are the Vikings going that way? Are we going to go defensive tackle and end up with 2 Byron Murphys on the team? What does your gut tell you positionally that this team is looking for in round one?
The instincts do guide me at this stage of the equation that they will draft a quarterback relatively early. And I'm at this stage, I'm still not ruling out just a couple of facets that people either think are impossible or they're just not thinking of. One is trading way up to get one of the 3 quarterbacks everybody's talking about. I'm not ruling that out. Now, I think it's below 10%, but I just strongly feel they're going to make a move for a quarterback relatively early in the draft. Now, a week and a half from now, when free agency begins and that legal tampering thing, I think it's Monday, March 11th. That's where the rubber meets the road with Cousins right there. Once you can get through that, you figure out what that deal is going to look like. It's going to open the mind to possibilities of what could happen with a big trade up or maneuvering around 11 to get a quarterback of your desire. The defensive linemen were very eye-opening at the combine, from what I understand. The Texas kid, Byron Murphy, is somebody a lot of people like. There's this cat with the last name Fisk that a lot of people like. Jerzon Newton from Illinois is somebody I first caught when they played the Gophers, and I'm watching. I'll watch as much Gophers as I can during the Viking season, despite travel, because I have PJ Fleck on my radio show every Monday, and I just want to be as up to speed as I can be with the nuance, not the obvious stuff. And when I watched that Gophers Illinois game, I had no idea who Jerzon Newton was, and he didn't play in the first half because he was suspended for late for a meeting or some class related thing. And then he came in the second half, and again, I'd never heard of him. He was unbelievable. He's one of the best players in the last X amount of years that I've seen in games that I've intently watched with just what he does on the interior of the defensive line. So I'm very infatuated with him.
I can understand that. So, PA, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and you segued to it nicely, our guest after you here in the next segment is our good buddy Topher Davis, who is also an attorney. I want to talk about the phrase legal tampering because I listen to 9 to Noon quite a bit. I try to text you a little less so you can just enjoy your show, but you know how much I listen. And there was a lot of talk about what's going to happen on that legal tampering day. It seems like a contradiction in terms, but for our NFL fans out there that maybe aren't super familiar, what can you explain about the legal tampering day that could be, as you said, a mammoth day and what the Vikings do this offseason?
Yeah, it's an oxymoron. There's no doubt about it, but it had to be put in place a few years ago, because just too many things were popping up from the right media members where the commissioner just had to look at it being like, this is a terrible image. The free agency begins on Wednesday, and, there are reports that Brian Prudhomme has signed he's going to be close to signing a 3-year whatever type deal. So I think the commissioner got bored with that. So therefore, the Monday before free agency opens on Wednesday, you legally, per the rules, can negotiate with agents. Teams can negotiate with agents, and you can put together free agency related deals and then have them go official on Wednesday. So that's the oxymoron known as legal tampering. But that whole thing, if illegal tampering would be the other side of it. Well, I mean, at the NFL scouting combine, the evenings involving coaches and personnel people and agents, just, starting it there. I mean, that's, I can't say I've ever seen it happen or I've ever heard it, but everybody in the world knows that stuff like that does happen. And that's kind of where it begins. And that's where, I was there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And in just a very short amount of time, I do believe that if Atlanta has an opportunity to get Kirk Cousins, I wouldn't be surprised if they did ship all in on him. So you got to keep that in mind because that could be something that, like Monday, March 11th, that pops, that Cousins is going to be a Falcon, which I wouldn't be a fan of. But nevertheless, if it happens, it happens. So that's kind of the whole aura with the whole oxymoron known as legal tampering.
I appreciate the explanation. It was very well done. And Dave, I don't know why, but my name sounds so much better when PA says it than when I do. But if Brian Prudhomme is signing a 3-year deal, it's probably worth about $15.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
But Dave got a 5-year deal, 3 of it guaranteed.
Yeah, I'm still on that rookie prove it deal.
Yeah, but see, PA, here's the thing. My deal is bringing Brian places. So sometimes
he is my driver, PA.
Sometimes you gotta understand your role.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like Aaron Rodgers, when he went to the New York Jets. He's like, I'm only coming here if I'm able to get Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard.
There you go,
They
Dave.
move on both those guys, and A-Rod plays 4 plays.
Yeah, right?
Dave, you're my Alan Lazard. There you go. Go ahead.
Let's hope that I have a little longer shelf life than Alan Lazard. PA, so I was talking to a friend of mine, and you'll understand why in a sec, who was an iron worker, and he was talking about his first time climbing a building and that wasn't yet built, and how excited he was for that first time and being up there and how amazing it was. And now he's been an iron worker for 20 years, and while that's still cool, it's not as amazing as it was. What's something that when you knew the first time you were going to the combine that you were super, super excited to see, and then you saw it, and now it's just part of your trip to the combine?
Well, it's when we first went in 2011, Cam Newton was taken first. That was the Christian Ponder draft for the Vikings. And, it was just navigating my way through what was big and what was not big. All right, so like Cam gets back there, and right before the combine, he says something like, I'm an entertainer, and that just bugged a lot of Football Nation. I don't know why, because, we derive entertainment from football. So it's like, wow, that's bigger than I thought it would be. But the A topic there was, when we did 9 to noon at the combine in 2011, it was us. The Cleveland Browns had a Browns.com or whatever had a little area. There was an Indianapolis radio station, and the host, Dan Dockage, is really cool. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, they had a radio show there. So there were just 4 of us for like 2 years. And then the third year, it was like 6 of us. And then the next year, it was like 10. And then the next year, they had to move us into a ballroom because it became 20 to 30. This year, it was so big that, doing 9 to noon and working with the Vikings Entertainment Network, we were only able to get like 1 table where we really, we need 2 because of the radio show and the TV, but that's okay. We're completely talking champagne problems here. But it just shows you that, they didn't have space to give people extra tables. So it's really, really become jammed up. I enjoy going back there now more so than 15 years ago because, like, when I get together with Browns coach Kevin Stefanski or Arizona Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing or their coach Jonathan Gannon or Darrell Bevel with the Miami Dolphins, all friends of mine from days gone by. It just, for me, and I think for them too, we just are more genuinely and greatly appreciating the friendships, when we get to see each other the rare amount of times we do, more so than maybe we did in the past. And, it's I'll tape a lot of interviews, I'll hustle and, I'll get guests to come on the show and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like if somebody can't make it or, somebody doesn't text back, I don't look at it now the way I used to. I take it every bit as seriously, but I don't life and death it, the way I did, like, say, 10 years ago and get upset if people couldn't join.
So speaking of appreciating friendships, not only do we appreciate yours, Paul Allen, but Alexander Mattison seemed like a very likable guy in the Vikings locker room. He's no longer a Viking. Your take on that, and does running back become a need, or is this just Ty Chandler's bus to drive now?
It's an interesting question, Brian, because it has to start with there was a brilliant opportunity for Alexander, and it didn't work. Okay, so it starts there, and I don't generally like to start with the touchdown. I prefer to start at the bottom and kind of unpack it. But you have to start there because it then you digress, and it gets to, all right, well, was Alexander making bad decisions, getting nicked up, missing holes, not following the plan, or was the running game so non-existent at times here and such a non-factor at times here that it compromised what Alexander can do? I'm somewhere in the middle. It's with Madison. Alex will beat you up. If you run him 20 or 22 times, and that will impact a defense specifically in December in the third and fourth quarters of games. Well, that was the plan, I would imagine, but it didn't exactly work out that way. So now they're putting Ty Chandler in the game, and Ty can catch, and Ty's faster than Alex, and Ty has a future. But Ty's pass protection, with all due respect to a kid I absolutely love, it was below average. That's the only way to put it. I mean, there were times where they couldn't put him in the game on third down,
right,
and you would see C.J. Ham back there, or you would see Johnny Munt or somebody next to the quarterback. Well, that has to improve. So with Alexander, he'll find a home as a backup running back. And yes, I do believe they absolutely will draft a running back. But let's not, I brought this up on the Friday Football Feast with Paul Charchian, and he didn't like it as much as I do, and that doesn't mean I have to be right. But Cam Akers is not bad, and when Akers got here, I never really had watched him that much, and he's just very calculated, smooth, and smart at what he does. So there's room for Cam Akers here, maybe as the starter, maybe not.
So, PA, on top, I want to add to that. And so we talked a little bit earlier about, the Vikings could potentially move up for a quarterback. If they move up for a quarterback, is there a possibility that maybe they go for a couple years and swing big at running back, like go after Barkley to help a kid quarterback?
I would say that's a really interesting question because, with Barkley or Josh Jacobs or Derrick Henry just Austin Eckler, some of these unbelievable names that potentially could hit free agency. They're not all four of those names I think are going to hit, but they might, and I think 3 or 4 will. Okay, so now how do you pay that? And like if you bring in Derrick Henry or you bring in Saquon Barkley, well, then those people have to completely be in tune with the fact that Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and T.J. Hawkinson all are good. So if you think it's going to be, all right, I'm here and I'm going to get it 25 times a game and they're going to completely reconfigure a passing offense that is quite potent, that's not going to happen. So just keep that in mind. But there's room for something like that, and the way you framed it up was perfect. Specifically, if you don't think you can get the quarterback you want to get in the first round. But, again, I'm not saying a lot of this stuff that we're talking about or I talk about 9 to noon is fruitless, because it's not. But until the Kirk Cousins situation is solved, it's very, very difficult to ponder what's next.
Absolutely. Now, a question like that is why Dave got that 5-year deal while I got the 3-year deal. PA, I want to close with this, though. Where are you as a sports fan right now? Because Combine is here, draft steam is coming, free agency's lurking. I know how big of a basketball guy you are. It's March. March Madness will be here. The Wolves are having an incredible season. The Wild are still on this roller coaster ride. The Twins will be started soon. State hockey is next week. This truly is, and it's a song you use a lot by Andy Williams, probably the most wonderful time of the year, isn't it?
It's a wonderful time of the year, no doubt. I think, when free agency begins and we start walking up to the draft, it gets even thicker. I just, doing KFA and radio and And, being able to do things like this with you guys. And, at 1 o'clock today, I'm going to be on Sirius Satellite Radio with a long friend of mine, Rick Kamla, a longtime friend from Edina, does NBA radio stuff. The blessings and the honors to be able to do things like that really inspire me and energize me when it comes to the world of sports. When it comes to me right now, like I went to the Wolves game last night. I've been to 7 games this season. I'm taking my son, Derek, to Los Angeles a week from tomorrow, and we're going to go to Wolves-Lakers Sunday and then Wolves-Clippers on Tuesday. So I'm just really, really into the Timberwolves right now. Growing up in Washington, D.C., I played basketball. Basketball really league-wide has kind of always been my favorite vibe, and it still is. When it comes to watching league-wide stuff, I love the NFL too, don't get me wrong, but this is an every night situation, and the Timberwolves are legitimately good, despite the OT loss last night. So I'm really into the Wolves right now. I'm really into Gophers hockey this time of the year, specifically with the Frozen Four being at XL Energy Center. Scott Sandlin up there in your neck of the woods, salt of the earth, phenomenal human being. I got to know his son Ryan quite well over the years when he played at Mankato. So this is the time of the year that I kind of metaphorically shove all in on Gophers hockey, hoping they can win a national championship.
There you go. Dave Cook will love that as well.
Yeah,
Folks
right?
in Duluth may not, but this time of year, yes, it is absolutely the best. PA, you are one of the best, if not the best. Hey, send us a picture when it's you and Jack Nicholson courtside for Lakers T-Wolves here soon.
God bless you guys, man. Love you, and have a wonderful weekend.
Love
Thanks,
you
man.
as well. That's our guy, Paul Ellen. Stick around. Topher Davis is next. We will be right back.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players. Pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
I could let that song go pretty much till the bitter end, but for Dave Cook's sake, I won't, even though I let him in on the story behind a little G5, I'm the man. Now you know the story behind it as of earlier this morning.
Yeah, so my understanding is you and Toph could do this karaoke style.
Yes, we certainly could. We had some choreography
Interpretive
involved.
dancing, very nice.
Many a state tournaments ago, we probably played this song on loop, where I'm surprised it's still available to play on any device I own anymore. You know how records, you could scratch it and ruin
yes.
it? I'm not sure how you can do that digitally now, but I gave it a run.
Yeah, you'd lose a pixel here or there, or lose a byte of information.
Absolutely. Some would say I overused it. One thing you cannot do is overutilize our sponsors.
Absolutely. Let's start with Arola Architecture Studio, Hoops Brewing, OAR Holdings, Kraus Heating and Cooling, your Carrier HVAC authorized dealer, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, the Blackwoods Group, including their locations on London Road, in Proctor, in Two Harbors, Blackwater Downtown, and Tavern on the Hill, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, and Comfort Systems of Duluth. Brian, catch us up on the Blackwoods thing.
Blackwoods has an Easter dinner available. It feeds 6. The cost is $165. You can pick it up at their Proctor location, or, of course, you can have it delivered. You can do that via email. Set up your order at easter@blackwoods.com, and you can also give Jessica a call, and we'll pass that number on to you a little bit later in the show. But for right now, we're going to go to Topher Davis. Now, we just ended with Paul Allen, and PA mentioned he's going out to L.A. in the coming weeks here to take in some Timberwolves on the West Coast. And I said, hey, you could meet Jack Nicholson if you're sitting courtside. You know, if you go to L.A., you could also find Topher Davis, or at least in the area. But we've got him on the phone, and that's even better today, to talk state tournament memories. Even that song, I'm the Man, G5, that brings up a vivid one for me. Topher, good morning, sir.
Good morning, fellas. Thanks for having me. It's always fun to be on and joining the PA Hour 2 of Northland Sports Patch today. To Northland Sports Page, obviously, you got PA, now this washed-up PA announcer, followed by, of course, our good friend Pat Andrews. So it'll be all fun and games, and looking forward to talking a little high school hockey.
Well, and there's some irony to that, because you mentioned PA Paul Allen, and the washed-up PA announcer you were referring to was yourself, but it could have been Dave or myself as well.
Right.
And then Pat Andrews. So this is a PA aplenty, hour number 2. But let's talk a little bit of state tournament. We started the show with the matchups. We weren't expecting them quite that early, kind of threw our schedule off. Dave thought it was like Haley's Common, and the matchups are only announced every 70 years or so. But they came out right away this morning, and Hermantown got the 1 seed. Now, I will admit that I thought head-to-head would be the focus, and I thought they'd get the 2 just because Warroad had beaten them. It was basically the first single-A loss that Hermantown had since sometime during the Obama administration. But, we'll see what it does in terms of how this tournament actually plays out. But again, what surprised me, and perhaps shouldn't, because by the nature of it, it really shouldn't, how many returning powerhouses in single-A are just added again?
Yeah, it's interesting looking at that Class A bracket as everything's shaped up with all 8 section champions coming together once again. But yeah, it's a lot of familiar names there in Class A. So it is interesting always. I know I like to wonder where all the chatter is about Orono moving to AA or Matamina moving to AA or Warroad moving to AA, because that's all we hear about Hermantown.
Or I talk about why doesn't it take effect in other sports as well? Because, MIB, that girls basketball team could beat just about everybody up here in classes well above them. How come it's never mentioned in another sport? And I brought up too, maybe the reason it isn't is because basketball has 4 classes, football has 6. Hockey is kind of the dying breed with only 2. Is the solution someday, maybe not soon, but someday, to add an additional class to hockey? Because I think there's going to be a time where Hermantown is AA, but it might come when there's a AAA class as well, because people say, well, Hermantown's enrollment in Duluth East are not close. I agree with you. Duluth East and Wayzata and Mounds View and Champlain Park and those schools, that's not that close either. Where do you draw the proverbial line?
And that's exactly it. I think there's always going to be those issues. I know with hockey, the problem is the number of teams statewide, right? There's just more basketball and football programs than there are hockey programs, right? There's a lot more co-ops on the hockey side of things. So at what point are you going to keep adding another state tournament? Are you going to have more scheduling issues along with that, right? Maybe they'll be playing Constellation and White Bear Lake some year for all we know. So, things are always shifting around, but I mean, it's part of the whole mystique of it, right? You want to be the team that pulls a Chanhassen, right?
Right.
They beat the undefeated Minnetonka team. They're now the darling of the state at this point. So it's part of the whole challenge of making it 2 state. I think I know that a lot of people will say the section finals week might even be more exciting than the actual state tournament.
100%. 100%. And the reason I say that is because we talk about, the enrollment, and this team should be playing in this class, and this team should be playing in this class, and that argument just won't die. There could be a better argument that how many top teams are left out because they're in a section with another top team. Because, yes, Chanhassen became, oh my goodness, they beat the seemingly unbeatable, because they were till that point, Skippers of Minnetonka. But, I'm not going to take shots at the depth of some other sections, but there are some sections out there that could have 3-4 teams over the one that made it from, pick a section, whether it's section 1, sometimes even here in section 7, section 8. There are teams in section 5 that could send 3-4 teams, and there's no way around that. The only sport that I know that takes a non-section champion, in the winter at least, is dance team, because if you finish, I believe, in the top 3, you go. You're not going to see hockey adopt something like that, but there's an argument for it.
Yeah, it is always difficult, obviously, when you go by the geographically based sections, right, or theoretically geographically based, right? Just talk to Elk River there,
right?
But it's going to be part of the problem, right? Where sometimes teams might have stronger teams. I mean, Hibbing has an up and coming, fairly strong team. I know it's happened many years in Section 7A where teams build up towards that one year. Proctor's a team that's moving up and had another strong year this year, and they just run into sometimes a stronger program, and it's difficult for those programs. But I mean, it's all the way the system is set up is kind of the way it is. I know there were many years when we're all old enough to remember Hermantown not being a proverbial state tournament team,
because they lost to St. Cloud Cathedral every year. I remember that.
Well, even before that, it was
when John Carlson was there. Yes,
they were down. Yes.
No, but even back in the day when I was just a writer in local blogs and wasn't doing radio play-by-play, you talk about the theoretic geographical layout of sections. Let's not forget there was a time that Marshall was playing Denfeld to get to the state tournament in 7A, and Hermantown was facing St. Cloud Cathedral to get out of, I think, 5A.
Yep.
Hermantown's awfully close to Marshall and Denfeld. Why wasn't there a bigger beef then?
Oh, and trust me, there was. During my 4 years at Hermantown High School, our hockey team was in 2A, 5A, and 7A at some point during those 4 years. So,
you were the Elk River
it
of
was
single
always,
A.
It was an interesting time, certainly, when it didn't really, things didn't really make sense, but it felt like teams were trying to shift around, trying to find more competition, I guess, in different areas. But yeah, there's always going to be controversy. That's one of the beauties of the high school hockey tournament, right? Is every year everyone's going to get together and have these controversial conversations. Certainly, it'd be exciting to have a little bit more, potential parity in the Class A tournament. But I tell you what, looking at the brackets, I don't see any one team that's going to allegedly go in there and dominate. I think it's going to be a really good tournament.
I do too, and we're talking with Topher Davis, of course, who's been my analyst before. He's been a co-host before, and now he's out on the West Coast. Always times when you miss home, but is this coming week maybe the biggest one?
It's definitely a big one, right? Where obviously it was always a lot of fun heading down to the state tournament, even just, pretty much any time. And even now, I make sure to set up a TV and get the stream going, and because it's always everything kind of stops for a few days starting on Wednesday afternoon. And I remember when I was in practice in Duluth, there were some judges that would have TVs set up in their chambers to keep up with the state hockey tournament during judicial hours. It's always an interesting time. The whole state kind of takes notice, and it's something that's really special and unique to the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, Topher, I was thinking while you and Brian were talking about how you could actually fix the issues you were speaking about. I wonder, they tried the Tier 1 and Tier 2 thing for about 6 months. That didn't work at all because you had teams tanking at the end to make the state tournament. But I wonder if there is something to what professional soccer does. And teams earn their way the year before into either the top level or a second level. There's got to be a way. Because you're right when you said, look at the brackets for single A, that they are, really, this could be a really good tournament. But if you look at the brackets from single A last year or the year before, it's the same bracket. And so while single A can say, look at our tournament, it looks really good, well, it's the same 8 teams. And so how do you expand that? I guess that's the question. How do you give more kids opportunity to strive for that? I don't know if there's an answer. I was just wondering about any other options you might think.
Sure. It's obviously a really interesting question, and I'm sure something that the State High School League looks at to try to figure out as well. It's not something where there is necessarily a clear answer. With what you're talking about, kind of the relegation, that's an interesting idea, but at the same time, what if it's a senior-heavy team that now the next year they're going to, they know that it's going to be a down year the next year, and now they're stuck playing a different class or something like that where they have no shot, right? So it's always going to be pluses and minuses. I don't know necessarily what the answer is. I know that I guarantee no matter what the proposed solution is, there's going to be detractors to it. Even if we go back to, just say, okay, we're going back to one section or, one class, and everybody comes out, tries to make their own way. And you're right, they tried different things at the Tier 1, Tier 2, and that didn't work. The thing exciting for me is that since they switched to the Class A system, the 2 class systems in '94, I feel that's really led to the growth of a lot of hockey programs, because I know that Hermantown has grown exponentially because of the Class A system, and I can't say we would have seen that same sort of development in some of these Class A programs without that class system.
I would agree with you, Topher. When I booked you for the show this week, I said, let's talk about state tournament memories. And let's do that, because what is the most memorable tournament for you? Because I struggle with that question myself. The first one I went to, I was 12 years old. Duluth East, it was part of that last one-class tournament. Made the final, lost to Hill Murray. It was the first time I'd been part of anything like that. It was amazing. When I got to high school as a student at Duluth East, they went all 4 times I was there, and it was, a great time. Then as a radio personality, getting to do now, this will be 7 straight. Each one is memorable for different reasons. You and I had some good memories, but where do you go? Do you go as a student? Do you go as a little kid? Or do you go as Mr. Radio Guy when it comes to state tournament memories?
Well, it's always fun because it's like different periods in my life. I have great memories of the state hockey tournament somewhere in there. For me, probably the highest one is probably the 94 Hermantown team, which was the first team to make the state tournament. Because I remember the feeling, because before that time, it was like, oh, it's the state tournament's this cool thing to watch, of watching all these other teams go. And it was like, oh, wow, Hermantown can go to this too? This is crazy, right? This is something that was kind of attainable. And I'm watching Ryan Karasik. His name's still, burned in my brain as the goaltender of that team. And going on that magical run of making it to state was something incredible. And then in 1998, when, your next guest, Pat Andrews, took the team and went to the state championship, Class A state championship game for the first time. Unfortunately, they ultimately lost to Eveleth, actually, in that state championship game. But it was another one of those moments of the program taking those next steps. And it was, incredible to see and then shortly become a part of kind of that growth. And then obviously walking into the broadcast booth for the first time and kind of looking down at the ice from
way down at the ice,
way up there at the Excellency Center is kind of a cool moment to say, wow, being part of this whole program from this side of things now is really neat and extremely exciting. So there's so many things, and obviously the ancillary moments as well, right? Not just the tournament itself, but getting together with your group of friends and playing shinny in the basement with the tournament on the big screen when you're 8, 9, 10 years old, and wanting to be those guys, right? It's a very special thing, and it's really cool, neat experience all the way until broadcasting the games with you and seeing being at the broadcast booth, just down from the infamous Lou Nanny, right? Everybody in the North loves that guy, and he's there, and you're just like, wow, there's Lou. He's calling the game, and I'm calling the game too.
Right, we're colleagues at least for a day.
Exactly.
It has been a lot of fun, and Topher, I've called you my former analyst, my former co-host. I certainly call you one of my best friends. But one thing I left out when we're discussing hockey is you are a former goaltender. I want to close with this. If you would have been up here this year, how much would you have enjoyed this season in terms of our coverage? Because I know you've heard us talk about it. Dane Calloway is incredible. AJ Ryltz is incredible. Connor Doyle has been incredible. Kanan Smith at Duluth Marshall is incredible. This isn't the Blake Biondi's, the Dallas Views, the insert Duluth East player here with Garrett Worth when we were first at the tournament, Ryder Donovan, etc. This is not the season of dominant scorers. This is the season of dominant goaltenders. Goalies as a fraternity usually love that idea.
Absolutely. It's been a really fun year for high school hockey goaltenders in the Northland, and seeing a lot of those guys take those next steps and to build that kind of foundation to where we're going to have some of these guys going on to the next level. I mean, obviously, AJ Ryltz has already committed to a Division I school. We're going to see other guys go on and play juniors and no doubt end up somewhere in Division I. And it's pretty neat to see. I know that the goaltending position is a unique fraternity you mentioned. Part of it because really only one guy gets the amount of the most of the playing time, as where opposed to if you play center, if you're the fourth best center, you're going to be playing in every game as well. But in the goaltending world, it's not quite that level. So it's a different cut line, and seeing those guys raise that cream to the crop a little bit has been pretty neat as well.
That is our guy, Topher Davis, talking memories of the state tournament. Always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll talk during the week. I know you'll be rooting for the Hawks, and, of course, led by our next guest, Mr. Pat Andrews. Thank you for the time, buddy. We always appreciate it.
Thanks, Toph.
I appreciate you guys. Happy belated birthday, Dave.
Thanks,
and happy
Toph.
belated birthday to our friend Daniel Hersey as well.
There you
Thanks,
go.
fellas.
Hers is a game changer, as are you. Mr. Topher Davis, thank you so much. We go to Pat Andrews next on the Northland Sports page. Stick around.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Right back. A little fly by Sugar Ray. The Hawks will hope to fly away with another state title. The brackets announced earlier today. The Hawks are your #1 seed. They will play Wednesday night. We'll have it for you on these airwaves. 6 o'clock puck drop. We know that one will be on schedule. It's the nice part about starting a session. It'll be Hermantown and Alexandria. Should be fun. We hope it's a long weekend following the Hawks. We've done that before.
Absolutely right. We talked about this at the beginning of the show too, Brian. While the number one seed Hermantown Hawks might sound similar, this team is different, and it's going to be a lot of fun to go down there and watch them just kind of wash over other teams.
So the first thing I want to say to Pat Andrews is congratulations, but perhaps the second thing I should say is thank you. Thank you for another trip down to the state tournament. We love following you, and congrats on the number one seed as well this morning, and good morning to you, Pat.
Well, thanks for all of that. We're obviously very excited and very humbled to be voted by the coaches as the one seed for sure.
Did that surprise you at all? Because head-to-head, you did get beat by War Road, but nobody can argue with your strength of schedule as well.
No, I mean, yes, I was surprised. I think we played games for a reason. I would have voted us as the 2 seed. I think War Road embarrassed us in our own building, honestly, and I figured they'd be the 1 seed. But at the same time, I feel like in the 2020 season, we should have been higher seeded, and we weren't because we had losses. And I think maybe they looked at our overall resume and our strength of schedule, which is probably the best in Class A, and we're rewarded for that. But I'm sure Warwood has a chip on their shoulder this morning.
So I joke about this for us because preparation for carrying a broadcast that's at 11 o'clock in the morning versus preparation for carrying a broadcast that's at 6 o'clock at night is very different for us. In fact, might leave on a completely different day as a result. Different for us, though, is my point. Does preparation for you change at all for a difference of 7 hours in your game time?
Well, in some ways, yes, because we go down Tuesday, the state banquet's on Tuesday night, so we'll be there. Part of me likes playing the early session because you just get up and you do your thing and you go play. A 6 o'clock game is very much regular for these guys, timing-wise, so that part of it's nice. We play evening games 90% of the time in the high school, so that part of it's good. It's just we adjust our schedule a little bit to get the guys up, not let them sleep in too much, and get some exercise a little bit, get team lunch and that. So it does change, but minutely.
So, Pat, I got to say this. It's a different cast of characters for the most part, but it's another trip to a tournament that's your goal every year. But this team is just different in the way they play. We talked about it last week where the scoring has started to come around, but it's not, lighting up the scoreboard on the regular. But the way you guys play in your own end is really a sight to behold. I've said, if you like fire wagon hockey, this might be boring for you, but this is a Hermantown team that might just win the whole darn thing because they suffocate their opponents. You use the term overwhelmed. Maybe I got a little bit too vindictive using suffocating, but the defensive style is so good. How do you assess your own team?
Well, I appreciate that. That's a great compliment. I think you have to be defensive to win a state championship. Even the years we've won with gaudy offensive numbers, we had unbelievable D. In 2022, we gave up the school record for the lowest amount of goals given up in a year. So I think it was just overshadowed by gaudy offensive numbers. That being said, I really love our team's makeup this year. I love how much pride we take in defending our own end. I love the fact that we have the best goalie in every game. I love our D core. Our team is totally bought into playing great team D. They know that's what's going to make us successful. It's a very selfless group. They play for each other very well, and defense is a reflection of that because defense is very selfless. Offense is selfish. Not that that's bad. You have to have offense to score, but just naturally you get your name announced. You get all the accolades playing offense. Defense, no one notices, except people that follow the game. And I love the fact that we have a great D, and it's kind of become our team's identity. And just interesting historical note, it's just we've never won a state championship without a captain defenseman. So I don't know, the fact that Estes our captain, the fact that he's just a tremendous defenseman, we kind of build off him, and we always kind of have off a great team D in general. But I think everything you said is a great compliment to this group this year.
I would agree with that, but so I have to go with this question now. I was going to save it for later, but it's too easy of a segue off what you were talking about. And you mentioned, never having the success of a state title without a defensive captain. But at the same time, I joked with the guys as we were carrying the section final back on Wednesday that this time of year, I tend to really hitch my wagon to a Hermantown defenseman. A few years ago, it was Ty Hansen. Last year, it was Will Esterbrooks, and he's still that good. But for me, Pat, it's slowly becoming Henry Peterson. My jaw is agape when I watch what he can do. he is that talented, and he is a difference maker as well.
Oh, he's so good. He got hurt last year, so he was starting to come into his own last season and got hurt right in the beginning of January, and he missed the whole season. He came back right before playoffs. So he really got cheated last year, I guess. And I think this year he has totally relaxed and come into his own, and you've literally seen him grow throughout the season, both figuratively and literally, because he's gotten taller too. He's over 6'3" now. So he literally is a man amongst boys at times, but his skill set is as well. He's so fluid for a big kid. Most big guys are not coordinated and have hands like Henry. He has been phenomenal for us. He's hard to play against. He's long. He's strong for his size. You can see why he was, an immediate Division I commit.
Yeah.
And he scored his first high school goal this year, and we teased him. I think he's the first person in the history of hockey to be committed before he scored a high school goal. But it literally kind of shows, too, how raw he was last year, and he's becoming more polished as the years went on.
Hey, Coach, one of the things that Brian and I have noticed over the last couple games that we've done is it seems your team is pretty good at picking out weaknesses of the other team and kind of exploiting it. We were talking about that during the Hibbing game. They seem to want to break out up the boards, and then the guy in the boards would just flick it out into no man's land. And inevitably, starting with about 4 minutes left in the first period, you guys were there intercepting that pass night in, night out. How much film watching and how detailed film watching are you with your team? Because they just seem to see that stuff and then react and take it away.
What's ironic about that is this is probably the least we've done ever as a group. Since I've taken over. We watch a lot of film as coaches, but this group has responded really well to less. Less is more. So we practice a lot of different things, and we try to prepare them for anything so they're ready for it, but we have not done a lot of pre-scouting with them because they tend to play just free, and when they tend to think too much, we don't do as well. So, going into Wednesday, we'll definitely scout Alex, and that's the easy thing now. There's so much stuff online. You just find film, and we'll have a game plan, and we'll talk about things with them. But we have not done a lot of here's what this team does. Watch, because when we have tried that early in the season, it just didn't go as well. Every team's different, right? So we found with this group is we know going in our game plan, and we coach them up as we go. And they seem to respond better. And that adjustment against Hibbing is a great example. Like, we knew Hibbing does that. We talked about that, and the boys kind of saw it, and we talked about it, and they were able to make that adjustment, and we were able to transition off it.
Yeah, they ended that pretty quick. A two-part question then, based on your last answer. Let's talk about Hibbing for a second, because that seems like a team that is just a bunch of kids ready to go. And then the flip side of that is the guy who dominated that team, River. Talk about his growth, because he looks like that next stud.
He is the forward stud that's come on for us. He was really good last year as a sophomore, and that was a testament to the fact that we had injuries last year. So River had to play. He was not ready to play second line center minutes last year. He was still learning, and he just had to, and it really helped him grow. So coming into this season, we had high hopes, and he's just gotten better and better. He's just a tremendous athlete, as I know everybody knows by now. Everyone talks about he's dominant on the football field. He's an unbelievable baseball player, and it shows in his hockey game. He's just so athletic. The things he's able to do, very powerful. He doesn't look very big, but he plays much bigger than he is, and he's got an amazing burst. He's been great for us. He our leading scorer. He is good in all situations, and he's an unbelievable competitor, which I think comes back to being the well-rounded athlete thing. He competes so hard, and it makes us better, and it obviously has made him quite the hockey player.
I think that's a good mantra for your entire team. They compete so hard. How much is it going to help? And I'll give you 45 seconds roughly to answer this question, but how much help is it going to give you that you're the 1 seed and you've already played seeds 2, 3, and 4 if this goes according to quote-unquote Chuck?
Well, it's just familiarity is always great, but I don't know that the 1 seed, 2 seed, they're all good teams. Having the last change is always nice, though, for sure. And Brian, that's a huge compliment to tell us that we compete. And it's one of our core values, and I appreciate that compliment because I think our guys do compete very, very hard. And at the end of the day, when you get down to that state tournament, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what seed you are. It doesn't matter what color your jersey is. The team that competes the hardest usually comes out on top. And this group, since last summer, since they put that goal up there after last year, they've been working hard for this, and I know they'll compete, and I'm really excited to see what happens.
Well, Coach Pat Andrews, we are excited as well. We'll cut you loose because it sounds like you and I could just gush over each other all day long. I'll do that Wednesday night, 6 o'clock puck drop. Good luck against the Cardinals of Alexandria. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. That's Coach Pat Andrews. That's Drawing Lines, courtesy of Roll Architecture Studio. We are absolutely thinking about Ryan as well. Thank you to everybody who participated this week. We'll talk to you Wednesday night with our state tournament coverage right here on The Fan. Have a great weekend, Northland. We'll see you.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.